good evening. Pull up close to your radio tonight. Because what I'm about to tell you happened in a real hospital, on a real ward, to a real person who showed up for his first shift just wanting to help people. And what he found in those rotting wooden barracks at the back of that building was something that had no business being anywhere near the living. Stay with me now. This one's going to get under your skin. His name was Theo. A man who'd spent years on the other side of the hospital bed, the scared side, the helpless side, and decided once he was well enough, he wanted to give something back. Noble thought. The only role available was care assistant on Elm Ward, a male surgical unit still operating out of decommissioned army barracks at the rear of the hospital, wooden-clad buildings, barely holding themselves together, leaking sickly yellow light through every window like a sick man sweating through the night. Elm Ward was due to move into the new unit in a couple of months. Theo would never make it that far. He arrived for his first shift at 7:30 in the evening, soaked through, teeth chattering so hard he could feel it in his skull. The hospital was only 10 minutes from his house, but the rain had ideas of its own that night. He found the external entrance to Elm Ward, a long corridor of timber and metal, woven glass panels pebble-dashed with faded posters about visiting hours and hand hygiene, and behind the corridor, looming in the dark, those three long wooden buildings breathing yellow light into the wet night air. To the left of the front door, a small metal box, a speaker, 3 buttons, faded labels barely legible. He guessed and held down the top one. The speaker buzzed, spat static. "Hi love, wrong button, this is Pine Ward." "Hold down the bottom one, you gotta jiggle it though, it's rusted." He found the right button, repeated himself, got a different voice this time. "Smashing, I'll let you through now love, give me 2 moments, a patient's just been sick." The door buzzed open. And as Theo reached for the cold wet handle, a third voice slipped through the intercom, fainter, scratched, like a record player dragged across a floor. "Sooner or later they'll know, you'll tell them, they'll know what happened to us." The intercom cut dead. He stood there in the rain a moment longer than he should have, then stepped inside and told himself it was nothing. The corridor inside was brighter than expected, warm, but not comfortably so, thick and humid, condensation sweating down the glass, down the pipes running overhead, the kind of warmth that makes it hard to breathe properly. And at the far end of the corridor, a woman, standing completely still. He waved, nothing. He called out hello, nothing. Just a white nurse's uniform, a tight bun, a pleasant smile, and eyes fixed directly on him. The lights flickered. She was 10 feet closer. He could hear it now, a faint spluttering sound coming from her direction. She was swaying, side to side, slowly. The lights flickered again. 20 feet away now. The smile was gone, still swaying, still gurgling, still staring. Theo's heart began to gallop in his chest. He took 1 step back, swallowed hard. Help, the voice crawled out of her throat and landed on the floor and dragged itself across the tiles toward him. Up close her face was ice white, cold blue lips, sunken eyes, a skull wearing makeup, a husk. She sank to the ground, crossed her legs, extended 1 finger, and drew it slowly through the air in front of her face. "Chanel sweetheart, sleep now." And then the door to Elm Ward slammed open. Sister Stanley, short, dumpy, absolutely authoritative, stepped out and immediately filled the room with her presence. Theo blinked and looked back. The woman on the ground was gone. "Oi, Theo. Come on lad, we've got a ward full. Let's get you in scrubs." He followed her through the doors, into a tight little corridor, walls pressing in on both sides, plastered with patient thank you letters and COVID posters and certificates of achievement. 6 doors, for isolation rooms, a storeroom, a utility room. And the last door on the left, blind pulled all the way down. Through a small gap in the blind, A care assistant scrubbing furiously, tears streaming, arms shaking. A sign on the door reads simply, "Do not disturb, deceased." Sister Stanley, Joan, he'd come to learn, got him into scrubs, cracked jokes about tearing her trousers getting a catheter out of an old man, and somehow managed to make him feel almost human again, almost. The first hours of the shift were uneventful: blood pressures, diabetic finger pricks, cleaning, the kind of mundane work that makes time move like cold treacle at 2 in the morning. The nurses began their drug rounds, one by one dispensing tiny pots of colorful pills, pumping liquids of various colors into 4 lines. And that's when Theo noticed her. A nurse he didn't recognize, young, impossibly put together, hair in a perfect bun, black winged eyes, lips that could cut glass, a pristine uniform that made his creased blue scrubs look like something pulled from a skip. She didn't look at him once as she finished with the patient in front of him, walked straight past, into the ward next door. Click, clack, click, clack. Gone. An hour passed. Most patients were sleeping. The ward breathed with snores and incoherent mumbles. All except one. In the bed directly in front of Theo, a man with his covers pulled up to the lower half of his face, shaking even in the dull light, eyes fixed on the ceiling, sweat beading down his forehead. Theo pulled the notes. Philip Lloyd walked over, tried to settle him. "Hi there, Mr. Lloyd. I'm Theo. You seem a bit unsettled. Want a brew or a chat or something?" Silence. "It won't let me sleep." "What won't, Mr. Lloyd?" The man raised one arm and pointed directly at the ceiling. "He won't let me sleep. He's lying on the ceiling screaming at me. It's so loud. Can't you hear it? Please shut up. I don't like the way your head's twisted round like that. Please let me sleep." Every sensible bone in Theo's body said, hallucinations, medication, a bad dream. But that one small voice at the back of his skull screamed something else entirely. He tilted his head upward, eyes climbing slowly toward the ceiling. Beyond the pipes, beyond the half-painted surface. Nothing. Just the ceiling. His entire body went limp with relief and he almost lost his footing. He looked back down at Mr. Lloyd. Mouth hanging open. Eyes rolled back. Bloodshot and glazed and completely, utterly still. Sister Stanley came running, worked on him frantically, then sent Theo to the break room and asked him to call Dr. Darius on the way. Dr. Darius apparently heard the commotion and came sprinting past, nearly taking Theo's head off with a stethoscope. The break room was a depressing cave of cream-brown walls and broken lighting, phones glowing like lanterns in the dark. Theo sank into a leather sofa that swallowed him whole and exhaled a puff of musty damp air around him. Then a voice from the darkness. You could smell it on him, death. It was only a matter of time before he expired. It was a mercy if anything. Click, clack, click, clack. The figure came into the light from the waist down first, crisp dark blue dress, long legs and black tights, shiny black shoes with a wedge. She settled onto the sofa beside him, and the musty smell of the room was immediately replaced by the scent of lavender. Sweet, disarming. Nurse Rickton. Pleasure to have you on board. She put her arm around his shoulders and told him death gets easier once you learn to accept the inevitable, called him a handsome chap, said she hoped he wouldn't give up too soon. Her phone lit up as she spoke. Those ocean eyes, that sharp smile. Click, clack, click, clack. And she was gone. Months passed. Same shift, different dead. At least one patient a week by that point, many of them reporting unnatural apparitions in the hours before they went, strange figures, things on ceilings, voices from nowhere. Dr. Darius was suspended. Theo bore some of the responsibility for that, found him drunk on whiskey and painkillers while treating a child in A&E. The man had no business holding a scalpel sober, let alone pickled. Then Nurse Rickton came forward. Said some of the recent deaths were connected to Dr. Darius. His name was on every file, scribbled notes barely readable as human language. Her handwriting was there too, but she said he'd coerced her, gaslit her. The police got involved. Then Dr. Darius broke into Theo's house, destroyed everything, furniture, photographs, memories, all of it crushed and burnt and thrown out the window. Theo had nothing left. Sister Stanley, Joan, took him in, her beautiful end of terrace, breakfast in bed, evening biscuits and television, a warm, quiet mercy in the middle of everything. He noticed a photograph on Joan's living room wall one evening, 2 women at a Christmas party, Joan, and someone else, someone oddly familiar. That's our Vivian, died in 2019, in the storeroom of a heart attack or something, hell of a woman. Theo looked closer at Vivian in the photograph. Tight bun. Pleasant smile. All dressed in white. He went back to work, he needed the money, and honestly, he missed the routine. Things were quieter now, new locum doctor, fewer deaths. Until the night a patient in a side room stood on his tiptoes facing the window, arms outstretched either side of him, and drove his head through the glass. Shards rained onto the floor like bloody diamonds catching the moonlight. The man stumbled back, fell into Theo's arms, looked up at him with a smile still carved into his face. "Andrea, my dear, you look as beautiful as ever." His hand fell from his throat. And the blood came. Theo ran, locked himself in the storeroom, stood at the window staring out at the forgotten courtyard below, his blue scrubs soaked through red, hands sticky in his hair, barely breathing. A tap on the glass. Like a pebble. He looked down into the courtyard. The man whose blood covered him was sitting on a bench below, a woman curled into his arms, both looking up at the stars. At peace. Fading into nothing. And then the door behind him clicked open. Bare feet on the vinyl, slap, slap, slap. 2 arms wrapped around his waist from behind. The smell of lavender. It was Nurse Rickton. She held him for a long time, her pristine uniform slowly collecting red polka dots as they stood there together. "You could smell the death on him a mile away," she said softly, into his chest. That small suspicious voice flickered briefly at the back of his mind. Then went quiet. Sister Stanley eventually found them and sent Theo home for fresh scrubs, but he'd gotten to the car park before realizing Joan hadn't given him a key. He turned back. The ward was unnervingly quiet. Dr. Francis hadn't seen Joan, Clara hadn't seen her either, Nurse Rickton was also nowhere to be found. He passed the storeroom. Shuffling sounds. He put in the code and pushed the door open. "Chanel, sweetheart, I knew you were sick, I could smell the death on you, but it's all right now, everything's all right." Around the corner. Joan, kneeling on the floor, rocking slowly, a woman in her arms. 2 legs in black tights, limp in her lap. A bun half torn from its hair tie. Eyes no longer an ocean of blue, pale islands now, in bloodshot rivers. A trickle of blood from her nose to her lips. Nurse Rickton. "Forgot the keys, didn't you, Theo love?" "Joan, what the F?" "Shoo, you could smell the death on her a mile off. The lavender was just hiding it from an untrained nose like yours. It's kinder this way." She told him about Vivian, how she'd seen the pain lift away when she helped her, how she could smell death on the patients before it came, how she'd slipped something into their 4 lines. Just a little bottle of liquid, just a mercy. Vivian appreciated my help, in fact she begged for it at the end. We still talk now and then, just as wonderful as I remembered her. She stood. Arms outstretched toward Theo. Nurse Rickton rolled off her lap and hit the floor with a horrendous crack. "Come here, Theo love, it's not killing as such, it's help, The last big thing you can do for someone is ease their physical pain so they can move on. He backed up toward the door. It swung open. He went down hard. Darkness. When Theo came round, police were moving in and out of the ward, Dr. Francis checking his pupils with a torch. Through the window, he could see Sister Stanley being let out in handcuffs. She looked back at him through the glass. Tired smile, half a wink. And she mouthed 2 words. "Sorry, love, I tried." He went back eventually. He needed the routine. He needed the patients in Clara and Dr. Francis. The death rate had dropped significantly. Things were almost normal. Elm Ward is due for demolition next year, making way for a new pediatric unit. They'll move upstairs into the main hospital. Theo says he won't miss the place. Not the dark, not the smell, not the things that stood at the end of corridors, not the voice on the intercom that first night warning him that someone would eventually tell. But there is one thing. Every now and then, he goes into that storeroom, looks out at the overgrown courtyard, and smiles as the smell of lavender fills his nose. That's all for tonight, dear listeners. If this found you in the dark, you're not alone. But maybe, just maybe, keep the lights on tonight. Hit subscribe if you made it this far. I'll see you next time. If you can still smell the lavender, run.